I would like to welcome you all, ladies and gentlemen, to what I think is a celebration. A celebration of work in complexity, first of all at the Santa Fe Institute for 20 years, and also here at the LSE at the Complexity Research Program for 10 years. So we're celebrating 1 decade and 2 decades of work in complexity. However, there is also a third actor or player in this, which is the existence European Complex Systems Network of Excellence that is funded by the Future Emerging Technologies of the European Commission. So these are our three co-sponsors today: the Santa Fe Institute, the European Commission, and FET and Existence, and the London School of Economics. I would like, in fact, to very briefly introduce the three co-sponsors. Dr. Robert Eisenstein is the president of the Santa Fe Institute, and he will be moderating this morning's session. And Dr. Ralph Doom, who is from the Commission, and he will follow me in giving an introduction to this morning before our first speaker, Lord May. This symposium is one of a series this symposium is one of a series of events under the Existence banner, and the next one is going to be in Helsinki in November. You have details of that in your pack, and that is being hosted very kindly by the Finland Future Research Center. Following that, in February, Daimler Chrysler will be hosting another seminar in Berlin. So as you can see, the events keep going and are becoming more and more Europe-wide. Our last one was in Bilbao. I would now like to finish by introducing myself in my capacity. I'm wearing two hats. I don't know if you understand that expression, but it means that I have two functions here. One is as the coordinator of links with industry and government of Existence. So I'm wearing my Existence hat and I'm welcoming you on behalf of Existence, but also as the director of the Complexity Research Program here at the LSE, which I set up 10 years ago. And again, you do have details of the work that we do. We work collaboratively with organizations. We use complexity in a very practical way to actually look at real life problems with our business partners. Now, Ralph will say a few words on behalf of the Commission, and I would like to introduce Dr. Ralph Doom. Ralph is a physicist, and he joined the Commission 3 years ago, and he has been really the moving spirit behind getting complexity research funded. I think we owe him a debt of gratitude because he actually got us started. He got the complexity the Existence Network of Excellence. Very much, it was because of him, I think, that we exist. And he will now tell you a little bit more of the kind of work that his division of Future Emerging Technologies has funded, because his object in the Commission is to encourage future programs and possibly in complexity. So Ralph, do you want to be there or do you want to hold it? Okay.
Yes, Eve made me almost blush with this very nice introduction, but I guess we really made an astounding progress in the last 3 years. 3 years ago, when I came here to LSE to organize the first brainstorming on what the Commission could do in complex systems, it was not at all clear whether this would be a fitting thing for a technology unit like ours to finance. But now 3 years later, we have a portfolio of projects in complex systems which are all very exciting and in very diverse areas, ranging from biology to sociology to, of course, the main part of projects in information technologies. The question I would like to address here is why do scientists, managers, engineers, funding agencies show now this very strong interest in complex systems? And what are complex systems anyway? The answer to the question, what are complex systems, I leave up to the symposium speakers. What I would try to address is why now is there this surge in interest in complex systems. I guess a partial answer to this is the enormous increase in capacities of information technologies. This enormous increase led to profound changes in the way we do science, we do business. It also had enormous impact on society. Let me give you just 2 examples where this is very clearly seen. Information technologies allow us to acquire and to store an enormous amount of data. For example, in molecular biology, we are currently creating a wealth of empirical data. This was simply not existing 10 years ago. New methods of data acquisition in molecular biology, like microarray technologies, allow us nowadays to study expressions of genes, 10,000 in an afternoon, when 10 years ago it was still 1 or 2 genes and you needed a month for doing that. So we have this wealth of empirical data, and we have to try to advance our understanding of living systems, for example, based on this empirical data. In business, information technology had an equally important impact. The encounter, or some might say the clash of communication technologies with businesses led to totally new business models like e-commerce, like C2C, customer-to-customer businesses. While this gives us enormous and exciting new opportunities, it also leads, of course, to enormous risks. For example, highly interconnected systems have the risk of cascading failures, like, for example, in the power grid outage we experienced a couple of months ago in New York or in Italy, or in the banking crisis, in the South Asian banking crisis, where the belief in the benefit of the supraconductivity, as some consultants put it, of capital, was actually put into doubt. So in the future, I guess, scientists will have to understand, engineers will have to create, and businesses will have to cope with systems at a level of complexity that we didn't have 10 years ago, and which was only due to the enormous increase in capabilities of information technologies. So how does complex system research enter the picture here? Systems which we have to deal with are highly interconnected, as I said. They're very heterogeneous. They are open to exchange with environments. They are highly dynamic, and they are almost all the time out of equilibrium. And this is exactly the kind of systems, complex system theory in physics or in biology is dealing with. Hallmarks of complex systems is, for example, heterogeneity and adaptability. This is what was introduced by the founders of the Santa Fe Institute and named complex adaptive systems. In using these methods, we can, for example, now understand better the self-organizing and autocatalytic networks in molecular biology, or we can better understand the notion of increasing returns, which was introduced by Brian Arthur. Brian Arthur, by the way, will give a presentation where he looks at technology itself as a complex adaptive system, I guess, in the afternoon today. I would like to cite Robert May, who, in a Nature article, wrote the following: not only in research, but also in the everyday worlds of politics and economics, we would all be better off if more people realized that simple nonlinear systems do not necessarily possess simple dynamical properties. And I guess it is in this spirit that complex systems will really make a change to the way we understand complex systems which are all around us. Let me briefly digress on the nature of multidisciplinarity, which is of course an important ingredient of complex systems. There's essentially two types. The first is where the object of study is intrinsically multidisciplinary in itself. You can think of cognition, or bioinformatics is a recent example where you need many disciplines to understand the object of study. The other kind of multidisciplinarity is where you would like to understand properties intrinsic or even universal to systems in various fields. And a very nice example of that is the emerging science of networks, where, inspired by empirical studies of networks ranging from social networks to biological networks to communication networks in IT, so researchers try to uncover properties intrinsic to these networks. Examples thereof are, for example, robustness of networks, or the way the topology of networks affects the dynamics, for example, the spread of epidemics or the flow of information in social networks. Another area where IT played an enormous role is in social sciences, where recently agent-based modeling, which allows us to cover the micro to the macro link in social sciences, was possible due to enormous increase in computation powers. Chris Barrett will give a presentation where he shows to what level one can bring agent-based modeling in terms of agents which are simulated in terms of empirical input you get from these systems. One intriguing consequence of the penetration of IT into society is that these days society and IT are co-evolving, and more results from social sciences are entering IT. One example there, of course, is the Internet. The Internet is, I would say, unique among all IT systems in that it is operated and used by a variety of economic interests, service providers, content providers, and it is this collaboration and competition between the content providers and service providers which finally makes the Internet. So the Internet is not, as a usual IT system, a top-down designed system. It is a system which is an emergent property of the interaction between the service providers and content providers and the economic players on the Internet. So this is a totally new way of seeing IT systems. I guess Scott Kirkpatrick will talk about the Internet and the future of computation based on the Internet, and you will see that there is very new ideas and very new, very exciting possibilities. Going a step further, I would say for IT, and especially for the deployment of IT to society, it is very important to understand the role of information in society and to do basic research in the role of information in society, or if you wish to see society as information processing. So how do institutions store, process, distribute information? How do they do so effectively, and how can IT change the way we process information in society? I would like to give you one example again from a presentation which will happen tomorrow, I guess, by Luc Steels. Luc Steels will present basic research in the emergence of language in societies of agents like robots, for example. Now, while this is a very exciting field of basic research, I think it's also a very promising type of research to better understand how we can, for example, manage information systems. So you might think, for example, of ideas like new approaches to what is called semantic interoperability. This means how to really understand the emergence of knowledge in information systems. So you can think of societies of agents reaching some sort of agreement, mutual trust or shared knowledge, and you can think of this kind of societies replacing centralized structures like the semantic web or for example, centralized management systems which are used now by eBay in C2C businesses. So I guess the general spirit of what we are doing in fact and what we are financing in fact in the general spirit of the presentations in this symposium is to show, and I hope after this symposium you will be convinced of that, that complexity science has to give input and can change and can help in addressing the 21st century's issues. And I guess after all the presentations, you should perhaps be convinced that there is a way to use complex systems also in technology, not only in basic research. So I thank you for your attention, and I pass on to Robert Eisenstein from Santa Fe Institute.
Thank you very much, Ralph, and let me welcome all of you to this wonderful symposium that's been organized largely by Eve Middleton-Kelly and Ralph Doom and several of us at the Santa Fe Institute. We're very pleased to have all of you present this morning. I want to thank Eve and her very capable staff here at the London School for organizing this. I want to thank Ralph Doom for his role, and also my colleagues Susan Bellotti and Ann Stagg from the Santa Fe Institute for all the work they've done making this a reality. It's a particularly happy event for us at the Santa Fe Institute because this happens to be very near our 20th anniversary. We were founded in 1984. I'll say some more about that tomorrow when I talk to you about the program at the Santa Fe Institute. I won't belabor it at the moment. But it also happens to be congruent with what I understand is the 10th anniversary of the Complexity Research Program here at the London School. So it's a happy event on several occasions. There will be a slight adjustment to the program this morning. Unfortunately, Charles Sable has had a personal emergency and he will not be able to attend today. So we will be adjusting the program, lengthening the time for discussion, and the presenters can have some more time too if they need it. So that will, I hope, facilitate discussion and make things a good bit easier for everybody. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our first speaker. We're very privileged to have with us this morning Lord Robert May. As perhaps most of you know, he's had an extremely distinguished career in many capacities. At the moment, he is President of the Royal Society and formerly was Science Advisor to Prime Minister Tony Blair. Robert May, I think, started his career as a physicist and was a pioneer in the understanding of chaotic phenomena in physics, and then moved into biological sciences. And presently he is Professor of Zoology at Oxford University. I'm particularly pleased to say that he's been a great friend of the Santa Fe Institute for many years, and so it gives me great pleasure to introduce you. His talk this morning is entitled "The Nonlinear Dynamics of Vulnerability: How Systems, whether ecosystems or IT networks or transmission networks for infectious diseases, respond to disturbance." Lord May, thank you.